Clever 64 presents a Playguide and video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi there once again. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you another Lemon 64 game guide and review. In this episode we'll be taking a look at Switchblade, created by Core Design and published by Gremlin Graphics in 1991. In this game we play as a character known as Hero. By tapping the fire button he can punch, by holding that for a longer period he can mid-kick, and for holding that fire button until the bar at the bottom of the screen is full, he can have a low sweep, and that low sweep should get rid of most of the enemies. You can see from the start there, I'm actually heading left and avoid the fire because that will deplete our energy bar. You can see the blue energy bar there is depleting. Well, you can see I've collected a B bonus item as well, and that will also accumulate. But you can see those enemies, if I use the holding down fire and the low sweep technique, we'll get rid of those, and you can see my energy is already halfway down. In this secret underground room we will not only find a few bonus items to keep up our score, but in the next room we will find the first of our weapons. By picking up the weapon we have gained throwing darts, and that will help us destroy those bonus items in the corner, and that really does give the player a big jump start in this game. At first glance this game may appear not very well coloured there with that red and grey landscape, but according to the author the graphics were inspired by the William S. Burroughs novel Cities of the Red Knight. In this game our main character Hero must descend into the underground city and take on all the foes which inhabit the place, and once there also has to pick up 16 pieces of a broken sword, which you saw in the animated introduction. Once all those pieces are collected, then it is possible to enter the final boss room and take on the final boss. And before we get there, we have to face 128 rooms, split into 5 master levels, and at the end of those levels we will find an end of level boss. But before we get even that far, we must find the entrance to the underground world known as Underworld. We can throw the last of our throwing darts towards those enemies, and by holding down the fire button that means that will launch with maximum firepower, and by tapping that will launch with a small firepower, so there's absolutely no point doing that whatsoever. But you can see I'm spending time there getting rid of these land creatures, so that gives us a safe passage to the entrance to this huge massive complex that has managed to load on the Commodore 64. Yes, the whole 128 room maze has been loaded, and that will blow your mind considering that it's virtually worth 2 or 3 Turrican levels crammed into the Commodore 64's memory just on the one load. But before we venture in there, if I destroy this block, it will give us an energy top up to give us full energy. And there is only 2 energy top-ups on the entire first level, so I'll be showing you where the second one is in a moment, but in between those we'll have to manage without. Holding down fire button there means when we land we just have enough health to get rid of that enemy, bash our way through the wall to pick up our second and last energy pickup on this level. By inching down this ladder we will also hopefully defeat instant death, and if we don't run straight back up that ladder as soon as the next screen materializes, we'll get caught out just like this, and that alien will wipe out most of our health. The underground complex of Underworld isn't too hard to figure out, and at this stage the level is pretty linear, although it will branch off occasionally, and it helps to note the sides because some of those bricks can be destroyed. But those aliens there will attack us in most of the rooms coming up, and they will always spawn from the same respawn point, so if you memorize those in every single room, then you should be able to get rid of those aliens. And it always helps to hold down the fire to the absolute top before you even enter a room, and then as soon as you are attacked, you can lay into those guys. They will materialize at random, even though they respawn from the same restart points, so you can see me inching forward there just in case there is an alien on that level. On level 1, the player must manage to memorize one important thing, and that is the fact that we are invulnerable as long as we are standing on top of a box. Then the enemies will pass through the box, but they will not be able to pass through us, and we can kick them in the side and that will get rid of them. But you can see there, the floor will rise there, and that's a buffer that will lose some energy. And as I say, there are no more energy pickups on the entirety of this first level, so that weedy amount of energy there will have to last. You can see by running onto the screen, you can actually trigger those guys sometimes to respawn, and then stand at a safe distance. By blowing away those rocks, that will reveal lightning top-ups, and in the bottom right hand corner, you'll actually see the power bar will raise by collecting those lightning add-ons that will extend, just like the lightning on the ghost laser on Turrican 2. That will actually extend our power, and that means it takes less power to get those full strength hits. It takes less time to get those as well. But you can see I have to run and jump to reach those hard to get to places. From a standing jump, sometimes those things aren't possible to get to. But the aim of every level is to collect those sword pieces, and that will allow us to defeat the end of world boss, end of game boss. And by running and jumping there, no, we cannot do that from a standing start. We have to run and jump pixel perfect on the edge of that crate, and if we do that around here, then hopefully we'll be able to manage a safe landing and pick up the first of our sword pieces. You can see the sword appears there in the top right corner, and by jumping up we can avoid that spiky buffer thing that appears to wipe our energy. So you can see these levels don't take much to memorize, and at this stage the player can progress with fun outmaneuvering these idiots and blowing those away. And you may notice the wall there. If we blast through that, that will lead to more goodies. But if those aliens are on the same level as us, then that will push us back, and so you must observe standing on a box sometimes isn't always 100% perfect. Let's collect another lightning bolt, and that means we can kick now almost twice the speed. Somewhere around here we should also find the bullets, and those are another extra special weapon, and I think there are at least 6 special weapons in this game. And you can pick those up periodically and they will enhance your firepower. But you can see holding down the fire, and then that gives us max strength to fire those bullets. And you can even see another lightning bolt appearing just to give us some extra bonus. And we still have not died. Let's cling on to that energy. I'd say on this first world, this level 1 out of the 5, it is paramount not to die, and it is certainly possible not to die if you push up on the screen near the pit entrance, and then the alien won't knock us off, and then that won't waste half of that energy. But knocking us off the platform isn't our concern at the moment. Our concern is just preserving what we've got. We can see the bullets are almost through there. We gain a number of bullets by collecting those, but you can see that returns to the fist icon now once those bullets have dried up. But we can actually take on those guys, and we can even tap the fire button there and use the diagonal kick, and that will eliminate all those enemies which block our way. And they really are dumb, so yes, we can drop down onto the bottom level and that will force the enemy down, but let's be brave and let's take that guy on. You can see at this point that the enemy was dressed almost like a chicken, and the enemies do change. But in here we find an extra special token, and that will speed up our energy delivery an extra 50%. So now we have even faster reflexes than we had before. And up here, while we find some tokens, do we wait around and wait for those enemies to respawn? In this case, no. I'll head for the second of our sword pieces that we need to find on this level, and yes, let's take a running jump to get there. Pixel perfect there, right on the edge. Sometimes it can help to jump our way through a level, particularly jumping onto those boxes there and waiting for those enemies, because you can guarantee that they will appear. And thanks to those 50% lightning bolts and that energy increase, we can now ram those guys into the floor, put it down quickly. That's our second sword piece, and that's the second and the last one that we will need to complete this level. You can see the boss there, the enemy cannot fire through that gap and they are too dumb to jump, so that's absolutely no problem. And so let's reveal the next section of the map. You can see the map loops around itself there, but the enemy cannot get us if we are on the ladder, and that's a small mercy I am certainly grateful for. If we head right straight away and take on those enemies, then we can gain the bonuses in that area, and if we are not brave enough to do that, we can still take in the bottom route. You can see at this stage we are having to move quickly now to avoid those guys, and they are dropping down there from all different positions, so strategy must be observed to take down these rooms in the correct order, in the correct pattern, and then that saves that energy. The control system is just about controllable enough. Maybe the turning isn't very quick, but holding down the fire there with these two energy top-ups, it's now almost instant to blast those guys and punch those down and sweep those. So instant kicks there make this level worth it, make this level playable. You can find extra bonuses. Yes, there is a bonus there in the floor. We destroy the brick, but I'm basically busy saving my life there. And that's the first of our extra letters. That's an R, and if we collect all those, that will award us an extra life. So let's try to get into that bonus room from below, but one of those boulders, one of those blocks has actually blocked our entrance, so in fact it is not possible to do that, and so we have just destroyed our chances of getting into that bonus room. So you must get in there straight away, otherwise you've blown it, and so there are no way backs in this game. Try to get onto that top level. I don't think that is possible, and if we drop down here we are about to be massacred. So that's our first life used. We are down to 4 now from the 5 we started with, but if we hide in this entrance way we can use the low kicks to get rid of most of these enemies, and we'll find an extra bonus item in that flask. But you can see there the energy has bottomed out. We are down to 1 power energy there. It's going to take all our energy to increase that all the way back up to the top. And falling on our heads there, the enemies sometimes wander blindly into our path, so sometimes it's helpful having those blundering around the screen. You can see we can escape the top of the level, and it's great to see those screens materializing and popping up instantly there. And it might remind the player of games such as The Last Ninja, where things pop up and we have the fog of war as we enter new areas, and that's terrific. Unfortunately, we've just been blown off that screen, and unless we are quick there with minimal fast energy, and we've lost the double energy upgrade as well, so we've lost the extra speed, so holding down fire once we enter that level has never been more crucial. We can use the high kick to remove some of those blocks, but if the enemies take us on 2 at a time, we're going to have to really mash that fire button to get through those. And the karateka on offer is just about on the right side of playability. If it was any slower, it'd be too slow, and without these power-ups it is a little slow, but you can see I've just picked up the double power-up, so the game giving us a break there as we head on towards the end of the first level. So rising through there, you can see the monster, that thing that's walking up and down. I've no idea what that might be. Could be an armadillo type thing, but we are dealing with aliens here, so if we do get through these drones, and they're make our way up the ladder, pick up that S for absolutely no score whatsoever because we've already got the S, and if we do a running jump off that platform, then that armadillo thing actually marks the entrance way to the end of the level. Even beyond here, it isn't exactly a no way back, but if you haven't found the 2 sword pieces by now, then you will have to do so, because these controls are ever so slightly laggy. Jumping pixel perfect on the very edge of a platform isn't always made easy, but that controller is ever so slightly laggy, and in all departments it only just works. It does work, and the player can get used to those things, but the player will also have to memorize the level and all the technical aspects of it. Like in this stage, if we destroy the wall, we will gain a free weapon, which is actually pretty weedy, and we will use that to get rid of another armadillo. But down here, we'll actually find another weapon, and those are the bullets, and those are at least twice as effective on the end of the level boss, if we can use those. So let's launch a few of those throwing knives into this Indian, and collect, by destroying these things, the bullets. And so tips must be mastered in this game, because if we collect the throwing knives after we've already collected the bullets, then we'll end up with the knives, and that's not really a good idea. And the end of the level boss is no pushover, but at least he's a little easier than on the Amiga version. So destroying those blocks gives us a nice safe space, and all we have to do is hold down that fire button and launch a bullet into that boss in between his fire. If we stand here, we are safe, so we can launch there, and if we launch ourselves out of the way and do not drop until that thing has finished dematerializing, then we can take our time there. There is no time limit. We can lob bullets into the boss, and maybe after 10 bullets that thing will disappear. The hardest part is waiting around, and there you go, it's gone. The hardest part is just taking our time there, and then that saves our precious energy. But you may notice there the boss still took away that energy, and now we're on 3 lives. And that's unfortunate that the game doesn't give us any more life top-ups, and it actually gives us an invulnerability there. You can see that thing floating around means that we are invulnerable, and that's a pretty strange thing to happen. And we've also picked up some more power-ups, and we are using those bullets to get rid of all those enemies. So again, on this second level, it doesn't give us any indication that we are now on the second level. The landscape is exactly the same. And a massive leap of faith pit there that we miss by a pixel. That wastes another life. And unfortunately, we can pick up extra health just along this passage, and if we had have made it across that jump and survived that gap, that would have given us extra health. And the best tip, of course, is to have all the lives and all the health by the time you get this far, and then you can take this underground passage here, which is a little diversion towards the first of our sword pieces on this level. If we take this diversion, then we can emerge with any amount of health and then collect the extra health at the end to have full going on to the end of the rest of the level. But continuing on anyway, that's one thing that we are going to do, is save the health, and this is kind of a no way back, but it does lead us into the right direction. So at this stage the enemies will come faster and it will take more to knock out, and that's the third of the 16 sword pieces that we need. So there are generally 3 sword pieces on every level, and so you must be keen to find those and memorise the perfect pattern around these levels, the perfect formula, and then that means your job is quite easy. But you can see they're trailing around these levels. Yes, they are massive, and you haven't even seen the first third of the game yet. This is just at the entrance to level 2 still, and so collecting those hidden bonuses, we are now about to ascend back to that pit of death, and we are about to get our ass kicked, but that's fine because there is actually extra health, so let's collect that. So memorising where the extra health is actually more vital than memorising where the sword pieces are and where all the enemies are. If we bash through this wall, finally we'll find yet another enemy, a robot. He's very difficult to kill, and he takes quite a number of extra hits there, but there you go, that's the full health. And what do we find in here? Well, that's the rapid fire, so that will help us on this level as well. But 2 lives there, not very helpful at this stage. I'd recommend more than that. You can see bonuses will fall periodically, and that gives us extra impetus to explore the level, and extra firepower there, extra bullets. So sometimes we can outmaneuver and outdodge those characters, and once they're dead, they will not respawn if we venture back onto the same room, which is great. It means we can clear these levels, and once they're dead, they are dead. And so let's lay into these guys and fire all our bullets through there. And each level and each screen is different, and it's like a maze, but each screen is a puzzle unto itself. And once you've worked out that puzzle, that's another bonus there, whatever that may be. Once you've worked out that puzzle, then it's not too hard, and clearly I must jump over this gap. And so there aren't too many pits of death and pixel perfect jumps in this game. You may notice there are no spikes that we've fallen over yet, which is a huge mercy because I hate falling over spikes. But yes, if we do jump from those top levels and miss, that will deplete our energy. So we can recover from innocent mistakes, but those top level jumps will be punished. There are a variety of enemies on offer, and different things like these mechanical devices, which we must avoid those cogs there, and it doesn't help because we have to align ourselves on those ladders absolutely pixel perfect to jump and get out of harm's way. If we don't, we'll just end up jumping and end up landing in harm's way, so if we don't get that pixel perfect there, it can be infuriating. And on the Amiga version and on the original Atari ST version of this game, that was not a problem, and the player could ascend and descend ladders very quickly indeed. But on this Commodore 64 conversion, that is a problem. But on the Commodore 64 version, the end of level bosses aren't so much of a problem, so sometimes liberties have been taken. In general, I find the enemies are slightly harder on this version than on the Amiga version, and the tips are virtually the same. So if we walk into this room very quickly before the enemy is spawned, we can climb up onto that invulnerability spot and take him down. And so running in there, taking advantage of the random timings on the screens, means we can take out those enemies and we can have fun moving from screen to screen. On this screen, it gives us multiple ways to access those different areas. There are bonuses above there, and it throws in an enemy at the last minute just to mess things up. So the game does play fair, it's just that the time it gives the player to react isn't amazing, and the player has to be on their toes with the controls being ever so slightly laggy. But in general, I prefer the 64 version of this game over all the other versions which are available, and to my mind, I think even though the colours aren't amazing, the Commodore 64 version plays the best. Out of all the rooms on the second level, I think this is the most important. You can see if we climb the fire ladder, that will actually take us to another sword piece and more bonuses, but if we drop down the near ladder, that will take us to yet another sword piece, and that's probably the hardest sword piece to acquire in the entire game. So for the player, it's a debate whether to progress and go and loop the level, or to drop down here and go for the hardest sword piece. I tend to try for the hardest sword piece first, and if I can acquire that, then the rest of the level is fairly easy, and it does give us extra health. If we continue up the fire ladder, it will eventually give us that. But right here, right now, we've managed to find the last bonus piece of the bonus at the bottom of the screen, and collecting that will give us 10,000 points. But bonus points aren't really a very large consolation in this game when we have our eyes on the prize of those sword pieces, and just below here is actually the second level boss, or a second world boss, but since these levels look practically identical, I'm going to call these levels. And again, the player has to have those upgrades by the time they get to the stage, otherwise the aliens will kick them off the screen and they will have to destroy those guys again, all over again. And so once they're dead, let's get rid of them. There is usually a reason to enter a room, and in this room the reason is to collect the throwing stars, which will dispatch even the hardest enemy with just one throw of that thing. And so if we find that flask, here it is. But again, watch out for those hidden spikes there which raise from the floor. Those floor menaces will deplete our energy, and even though we don't find spikes which kill us outright, those floor traps will kill us if we don't watch out. But to my mind, this room is one of the hardest in the game, not only because we have two cogs to endlessly avoid, jumping over those and ducking under those, as we shall see. The sword piece there is on the block, and all we need to do is to fire the weapon across there, and the sword piece will drop down onto our level. Now, the hardest part is to jump over that pixel perfect gap, and if we mistime that, we'll fall all the way down, and that wipes off a life. So that is impossibly hard, and that is again probably the hardest room and the hardest sword piece to gain in the entire game. So a little background: this game was originally designed and coded, and the graphics were all designed and created by Simon Phipps on the Atari ST. It took him 18 months to create the game, and according to Simon, he modelled the game screens on Houston's Ranorama, and the extra bonus and the bonus letters were based on Bubble Bobble. The Commodore 64 version was converted by Jeff E. Calder, who also worked with Street Surfer's David Barber. We reviewed last week. He worked with him on Sport of Kings there in 1986 for Mastertronic before moving on to this. And then he used the same game engine to create Striker in the Crypt of Trojan for Codemasters in 1992. And the music was created by none other than Ben Dalglish, and this was the very last composition he created for a Commodore 64. It's great music and has a great hook, and the atmosphere in this game is enhanced by that music. And although there are sound effects in this game, the player can only select those from the title screen. Meanwhile, on the Commodore 64, I'm managing to get through those scorpions, and I've picked up the extra health there, which is available just before we get to the boss. And you can see I've actually picked up the throwing stars as well, which we have a few of, and if we throw those from this safe spot, we can hold down that fire and give it maximum power, and that means this end of level scorpion boss isn't too hard at all. This opens the door to level 3 out of the 5, and we are approaching Scorpion Alley, which is very difficult indeed, but luckily we can find those hidden bonuses and hopefully some health pickups before we get there. Taking a look at the scores, Zap gave this game 67% in issue 76 in August 1991, and the Power Play magazine, the German Power Play magazine, gave this 72%, and the main criticisms were the 1 to 8 screens aren't that many, and the graphics could have been drawn a lot better. So with an average score of 7 out of 10, I think this is a hidden gem. I think it has very much great playability. It's just that the game is a little too large, and it will take some time to defeat all these enemies and to get through to the Fireblade to defeat Havoc himself. I think it's great that the player will always find a special weapon just before the boss, and that makes that job very much easier. I think it's just a shame that there aren't too many health pickups dotted around, particularly on the first level, to help the novice. And perhaps a few more of those extra letters to build up extra lives wouldn't have hurt either. But I think the music on this game is probably the best version of this music that I've heard on any of the platforms or conversions, and that Ben Dalglish music is very hooky. And don't forget, Ben Dalglish will appear live on the 3rd of May at the Blackpool Play Expo, and it's only £12 per ticket, and I'll be there So if you want to meet and greet Sean Hollingworth and Pete Harrap and the mighty Ben Dalglish, then make your way over to Blackpool. Back to the game there, I find Scorpion Alley, and it's best to just jump over those and run like heck. But you can see a bird there, and unfortunately that bird pops out of nowhere, and if you aren't ready for that, we can even see a part of the Fireblade there, but that's game over. It's just a small matter of entering our name onto the high score table. So thank you for viewing another Playguide and review. Hope to see you again sometime soon. Thank you.